20 hours 30 with Dr. Yog Mahadeo and senior journalist of Kaiser News, Leonard Gildarie. Room 592 on Kaiser Radio. The radio with a difference. It is now 19 hours 30 all across Guyana, and it is time to enter room 592 with Dr. Yog Mahadeo alongside his co-host, senior journalist of Kaiser News, Leonard Gildarie. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening to you, and good evening, Mr. Kevin Smith, Joshua Van Slitman, and of course, Kaitor Radio crew. All of you, ladies and gentlemen, working hard behind the scenes to make Room 592 possible. I say on behalf of all of our viewers and listeners and my personal behalf, thank you very much, and thank you to Glenn Lau for making this program possible. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also take this opportunity to say hello to my co-host, Mr. Leonard Gildarie. As you know, he is the host of the 130 COVID Watch and Elections Watch that has been, hey, we're 100 days strong now, Leonard. It's been happening for 100 days. Congratulations, my friend.
Well, if there was a time to take a drink, if it was a big drinking man, it would be. But we're not a big drinking people. We pray.
Thank you. And let me also take this opportunity to say hello to Mr. and welcome, of course, to Dr. Henry Jeffrey, who a lot of Guyanese may or may not know. The younger ones may certainly need to know. Mr. Jeffrey has been an integral part of Guyana's political history for many, many, many years. And he certainly has his views about Guyanese politics, and he is certainly open about expressing them. Dr. Jeffrey, welcome to this room 592, sir. Your mic is muted, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, just before we get to our discussion tonight, we hope to be joined any moment by Mr. Sanjeev Datadin, attorney at law, who, as we know, also has his own experience and in the legal field, and of course, as a citizen of Guyana, expressing his own opinions and thoughts about the various things that are happening in this country. But while we get down to that, I just want to say to all of you out there, ladies and gentlemen, we do know that we all have to take the precautions with COVID-19. Leonard, today you and I did not get to address it as much as we ought to, but you just now advised me by WhatsApp that we need to just spend a minute to talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, please continue to pay heed to the advisories for us to stay physically apart from each other, for us to observe the hand washing guides, for us to observe staying 6 feet away from others, and for us to, of course, stay home. If you're not part of the essential services, if your workplace is not open, then please stay home. We are advising everyone, Leonard. I think a lot of persons, you have seen that over the past couple of days there has been no new case. Please be advised, having no new case is not as a result of there being no new case. It's the testing that has not been done at the extent to which it could be done. Leonard, you want to speak a couple words about that, please? Let me just get Mr. Datadin in our room.
Absolutely. So we would want to pay attention very clearly. Good evening, first of all, to all. We'd want to pay very close attention, first of all, to what is happening in Brazil. Brazil has restored a website that lists all this full data on COVID-19 in that country just hours after it was ordered to do so by its Supreme Court. And we would have had here some serious numbers that is coming out of Brazil there. Almost 1,200 persons would have died within a one-day period in the last couple of days. And I think it's over 30-something thousand deaths would have been recorded. We'd have to continue to pay attention to what is happening there, because as is being established now, we're not doing the number of tests that is required that would give us a very clear idea as to the real picture in terms of the number of persons being infected. So we'd have to continue. We have too much of a cavalier attitude here, Yog, when it comes to our people in Guyana and the way that they're treating this thing. It is as if 1 week have passed, 2 weeks have passed, and this ordered these measures that was introduced by the COVID-19 task force. It is just there for a week or two, and right about now, we talking to each other, we acting as if those things does not exist anymore. It's something that was passing, and we're getting over it. While many countries in the Caribbean are recording those numbers, in Guyana, the fact that we're registering more numbers and the fact that we're not doing enough tests is a clear indication that something is not being done enough, and so we'd have to continuously pay attention to it. It's bad.
Correct.
We'd have to do all within our powers to get it over with and done, but not adhering
Correct.
to the rules and the measures is going to not get us anywhere.
Thank you. And yes, let's get on with our discussion tonight. And we welcome Mr. Sanjeev Datadin. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we say welcome to room 592, where we unleash the truth. And we want to get right into the discussion tonight. We have two respected gentlemen who each have their own background. Mr. Dr. Henry Jeffrey, as many of you would know, he has been part and parcel of governments from both sides of the divide. Dr. Jeffrey, if I may put it like this, he would have been part of the PPP government, as well as previously would have been part of the former government, which would have probably been the PNCR. I'm not so sure, but I'm sure he will tell us whether it was more as a technocrat or whether it was a truly hardcore politician, sir. But I rather suspect his aim has always been to give technical advice and to give his services from more of a technical perspective than as a hardcore politician. Dr. Jeffrey, Mr. Datadin, welcome to the show. And Dr. Jeffrey, you have over the recent 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I would say, have been articulating some views. And I want to allow you to, if you don't mind, sir, really to get those views. Tell us about it. But in the main, you are saying that these elections ought not to be declared by the chairman of GCOM, but it is one of your opinion that the chairman of GCOM need to take stock and probably call on the chancellor of the judiciary and say, hey, let us not. You want to articulate that, Amida?
Yeah, certainly. First of all, hi everyone, and just let me say that that's not really true. What I said on that program with Mr. Chabral, as we were trying to explore the future, because people were exploring the future, what I said that there are a few things we know. We know that GCOM has to make a decision. We know that GCOM has to assess the evidence and the votes before it, and therefore GCOM has to come to some kind of a conclusion once it has finished those tasks. I have said that if perchance GCOM cannot declare a winner, if it feels that way, that it cannot declare a winner for whatever reason, but after looking at the evidence, normally, in normal situations, what happens, GCOM would make some recommendations and would, I suppose, leave the present government in place to fulfill those recommendations for our next elections. That's normally what happens when courts and things do these matters. They will say the elections are void, this, but at the end of the day, they will say that they'll make some recommendations in a month, 2 months, a year for you to do some things, perhaps have a new house-to-house registration, clean up the list, and move on. I said that I would have thought that the better thing to do, it would be not really to leave the government in the hands of the incumbent, because that would cause more problems than it will solve. If GCOMs can't come to a winner, the better thing to do would be try to see if you can force some kind of shared governance, some kind of national unity governance to fulfill these tasks that you want to fulfill in that period of time. I also said that it gives a break to see if people can work together, and maybe in that period too, we can come to an agreement as to whether or not, uh, uh, shared governance is a good thing for the future. That was my position. Not hearing.
Sorry. Just before I ask Mr. Datadin what would be his thoughts on that, Doc, would you then be saying that GCOM may have the ability to impose shared governance if it finds that it cannot declare?
Not at all. I am saying that it has certain leverages because obviously, if it finds that it cannot declare a winner, it can no doubt say to both parties that, look, I am making a proposal here that we come together and, or you come together and we have a government of national unity to carry this out with, rather than leaving it in the hands of only the incumbent. And I suggested too that maybe you would want a neutral chairman, and that neutral chairman might well be the third person in line in the country, as far as I understand, which is the chancellor of the judiciary. And in those 2 years, if you work together well, it's an opening for a country that is highly divided. Okay. So I'm not talking about forcing anyone, because GCOM's position might well be, well, these things need to be done. If we can't come to agreement, then I'll leave it in the hands of the incumbent.
Thank you. Sanjeev, I want to ask for your comments on Dr. Henry's thoughts there, and to ask you specifically, in your opinion, sir, Mr. Datadin, does GCOM have such a laxity that they could make such accommodation?
Good afternoon, you. Good afternoon, Leonard. Henry, good to see you again.
Same here.
Good evening to my beautiful wife. Yog, the issue is this. GCOM is a statutory body, and GCOM is obliged to comply with the laws that are given to them. We have seen recently, and we have been hearing recently from various corners, political scientists and persons recommending things, but you got to recommend things within the realm of reality. I mean, I have read the report, and I read some of what Dr. Jeffrey has said, but he's got to come back to earth. To say that you were going to get by some stroke GCOM saying they can't declare an election, then I believe they should personally repay the $8 billion they took to run the election. But you can't take $8 billion in a statutory framework and say you're going to run an election, and at the end of your count, which the whole world has seen what your count is, you say you can't declare. There is no such authority. And for you to interject that, I dare say that you give to people who are desperate and who, that is the way it is when you lose an election. One side feels very down and one side feels very up. But that's the history of how elections go. It's like I have been reading and I have been seeing people saying all along that it shouldn't be winner take all. I mean, I have views that there should be inclusiveness. I have views about these things. But if Parliament doesn't enact laws to facilitate these things, if our Constitution doesn't lend itself to that, how are you going to set about telling people that the time has come for you to break the law and for you to disobey the Constitution? This has got to be a process. Civilized societies have to function with rules. Otherwise, we'll do what we want. Now, GCOM's role is, in fact, a very narrow role. GCOM has absolutely phenomenal powers. We know that. But those powers really only extend to administering the election, to conducting the election. Once the citizens vote, and you have figured out what their votes are by counting their ballots, GCOM has no discretion. You see, there is, and it has recently, I've noticed that there have been utterances about the deeming provision that we have in Article 177 of our Constitution. Now, that deeming provision has been argued. When I was a young lawyer, I might have been out 3 or 4 years when I first wrote arguments about that, and I heard Dude Not Sing, senior counsel, the late Dude Not Sing, God rest his soul, he had argued it quite successfully, that the deeming provision meant that as long as the votes have been tabulated and counted, the person who heads the list as the presidential candidate is the president. And GCOM shall declare that. It wasn't that GCOM will go and consider what they think they need to consider. You see, what has happened in this entire system, Yog, is most unfortunate. We had a no confidence motion. The Constitution was bent and twisted and contorted. We then got to a position where we would hold elections. We then had a position where that was twisted and contorted. We haven't obeyed the Constitution or the laws in this country for more than a year. We then had Mingo doing a count again.
Right.
The court finds that it was not in accordance with the law. So that is why these sorts of ideas, which are totally outside of the law, are being peddled by persons, and it's unfortunate. Look,
Right.
GCOM can't force you to do anything. GCOM can only do the law. GCOM can apply the law. GCOM can't also decide that this is what's in the best interest, and GCOM certainly can't take a position that we can't declare a winner, because GCOM knows what the count is. GCOM can't, in the face of the count, say, well, we can't declare a winner. You see, all these complaints, if they were irregularities, if they are discrepancies, if they are complaints, whatever it is, it has to go to a judge. The Constitution says go to a judge, and a judge has the power to annul an election, to reverse a declaration.
Right. So before we get to that part, the elections petition and the court's involvement, Dr. Jeffrey, I want to come back to you because I'm sure you might want to rebut some of the things that Mr. Datadin is saying.
Yes, of course. Firstly, he spoke to the notion of figuring out the votes. I cannot believe that what Sanjeev is saying actually is that if I have before me some accusations that that there are many illegalities, the votes in the box are totally corrupted, that all GCOM must sit and do is count the votes and give it to the person or the groups that are accused of doing this. That is all their job. I disagree with that. And I think if that is the law, well, let's prove that in the courts. I mean, I am a bit concerned about people say you are operating outside the law, outside the Constitution. If that is so, there are recourse to the court. According to a lot of people, this government was illegal for God knows how long. The CCJ put down, they say the government is breaking the CCJ. Go back to the courts. At the end of the day, if the law is being broken, there's only one way to deal with that, and that is at the courts themselves. I have no problem with that. But what I'm saying, GCOM is an independent body. And when you are, as Sanjeev mentioned, figuring out the votes, when you are going to figure out the votes, and you have before you quite a substantial number of complaints about what has occurred, illegalities, and so on. I think if you got to figure that out.
But Dr. Jeffrey, let me ask you this. Yes. If complaints have been made, whose role is it to listen to those complaints? If one were to take I think it's 163 of the Constitution, whose role is it to listen to those complaints and allegations?
Honestly, I am making the complaints to the body that has executed the elections. if I make, I think I said it somewhere, if I make a decent prima facie case, then it is the body to do the remainder of the investigation. I am saying to you, that is it. Indeed, it is illogical to think that this body can be faced with all these complaints. Let's say that I mean, we are not talking about the veracity and the truth of the complaints right now, but it's impossible to believe that I am being told here that this body can be faced with all these complaints and just say, boss, I can't do nothing about it. It in votes in the box say this person win.
But
Although you are saying all the votes in the box are corrupted. The
but
body must sit down and look at it, come to their decision, and come to some decision.
But let me throw this to you both then. Now you're saying that. Let me throw this to you both. Because here is what. This same let's just say it as it is. APNO AFC wanted to accept those elections on March 13th with lesser amount of ballots in the boxes. Remember, at the end of the day, Mingo declared 19,000 more votes than actually existed. Whether he got them from the grave or wherever he got them from, Mingo declared 19,000 more votes than actually existed. Now, following that, when even APNO AFC's, their party, it has signed those statements and declarations and so forth. Following that, Dr. Jeffrey, are you still saying, having seen that, having seen allegations made of 172 names, which are all proven to be up for the air now, nobody knows whether the veracity of even the police's report is accurate now. How do you want a body to now address those? Dr. Jeffrey and then Sanjeev.
But
Go
the
on.
names, I don't know about the 152 names you're talking about. What names are those? The 152 people, the migrants that voted, something like that?
Well, it's allegations. It's allegations.
Right. It's allegations. The commission sent them to the police. I am being told that 24 of those names have been proven wrong, but you still have a substance. Remember, we were being told that nobody can vote without for somebody else and all of that. It's impossible. You even had the poor European commissioner saying nobody can vote. It's impossible. When I know I'm on the ground, I know that it happens. But even so, let me make this point. 24 of those, the police commissioner did, and those people who come up and say they weren't here should go to report to GCOM, and I hope they have done so. But the remainder of votes are still there. What I'm saying, they are not up in the air. I am not asking GCOM to just bypass all of this or say, I'm asking GCOM to make a decision and say that it's all nonsense or it has some sort of veracity. I am not saying that GCOM can look at all this and say, oh, it's all correct. Their job, as any board of directors, you run companies, you know that your job as a board of, when something comes to you, if you have to have an investigator, you can call Jeffrey. Jeffrey, can you investigate this for me? But they can call who they want. They can pay these people, and they must look at the evidence. At the end of the day, this is an evidential business, and then they gave that to GCOM, who must make a decision. You can't tell me that GCOM can just sit there and take all of these things and say, oh, I don't bother with them. I am going to just deal with the votes in the box. I mean, that's not, you wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I doubt Sanjeev would.
But again, it's the body that has to listen to it. But Sanjeev, over to you.
But Yog, you see, this is where the problem comes. For example, if there were two parties who got into a car accident in Antigua, they can't sue in the Guyana courts because the courts have no jurisdiction. This is how civilized society works. Now, GCOM is given specific powers. How does GCOM have any ability to investigate, even in a cursory way, what is being told to them? Do they have rules of evidence? Do they have everybody whose vote you want to take away, you will have to give a hearing? How are those people going to obtain a hearing? Who would vote on what the decision would be? How would you put in are you writing a letter? You do a smoke signal, you file a pleading. How is it you put it before the court? Are they going to administer oaths to persons so that they give sworn testimony? Who is going to administer the oath, and what happens in a consequence of a lie? GCOM is not equipped to deal with that, which is why the Constitution says the courts shall have exclusive jurisdiction. Now, if the courts have exclusive jurisdiction, it means no one else has that jurisdiction. And if the courts have exclusive jurisdiction to conduct the hearings, the courts conducted in accordance with the Act, the National Assembly Validity of Elections Act, to which there are regulations that specify exactly how you go about it. But we can't conflate two things. One thing is being said that GCOM should embark upon a path without there being any evidence that GCOM has the authority to be on that path. That's the first thing. I am confident there is no legal authority for them to do so. But then you want them to go on a path because you are saying that there were irregularities or complaints. The fact that you make a complaint doesn't make it a problem. What has happened with APNU? APNU has made a complaint and then relied upon their own complaint to say that there are complaints made that you are not looking at. Then they have said that we have sent it to be, how is GCOM going to investigate? That would be the equivalent to the Director of Public Prosecutions being a court. It cannot happen. It took 400 years for us to put the system that we have in place. It's 2,000 years since Roman times that if you have a case, you must have evidence. You can't just say so. 2,000 years, and we want to undo it because you have a view. If you ever went down to the Artichon Convention Center and you saw that randomly APNU agents are calling numbers, I was there, they called 68 numbers in one box, of which 2 people voted, which means 66 was utter nonsense. Now, we go around with that and say, well, there are all these complaints. Complaints about what are you saying? Now, even if you were to take the 29 boxes, and even if you were to take the complaints of people validly voting, does that change the election result? No, because there are not more than 15,000 that can be established. And what does the law say about that? Unless you change the result, the petition or any application must fail. Now, what you're trying to say is GCOM must supervise itself and say that they have cocked it up and they haven't done the job that they should have done. When what is being raised, we are taking, this is exactly why, for the last 3 centuries, we have removed the determination of how votes are cast and who it is cast. It used to be done in the Parliament before. That's where it originally lay, Parliament being the highest court of the land. But there was a reason why Parliament passed throughout the English Commonwealth. They passed laws and they passed constitutional provisions that made it the exclusive province of the court. The reason is you must prove it. Right. Now, you can't turn up and with innuendo. All of this discussion about GCOM going to a wider plane and doing things outside of the law is being engineered because of the perception that there are all these complaints that APNU is making. But APNU is not proving a single one of their complaints. Not one. They have proven 172 names. They sent 200 names to the Commissioner of Police, who responded with 172. Kaichor has found 24 people. 17 people were found by Neil Marx's newsroom. I believe Stabrook News found some people.
Well, I can tell you, sorry to interject, I can tell you that on Kaito Radio, 2 or 3 persons called in, one from Pomeroon, one from West Bank, and another from East Coast or Burby somewhere, call in to say, I am here, I can come in there. Leonard, you want to speak about this? Because the people call into our program.
Yes, I think one gentleman on the West Bank there was saying that his niece was one of the persons that was on the
Hmm.
list, and they were able. He was able to verify that the girl never left the
That
country, had never left the country, in fact. But
right.
York, I want to ask
That is
quickly as I have the floor
Yog.
here. I want to
Yog.
ask. I want to ask
Yog
Dr.
also
Jenry,
on
Jeffrey.
those numbers.
Yeah.
Not to interrupt, but also on those numbers, Yog.
Hmm.
Bear in mind those list of names that were submitted to GCOM, and that GCOM quite incorrectly, I believe, submitted to the Commissioner of Police. I know of no written law for GCOM to have done that, but I certainly am fully aware that for the Commissioner of Police as the Chief Immigration Officer to have disclosed and divulged information of those people is unlawful. He cannot do it. It is not a police investigation. He cannot do it without a court order. Now, he did it, so be that as it may. As I tell you, we have been playing fast and loose with the law and it for a while, but be that as it may, he said there are 172. It has turned out, I mean, I have persons who text me and send me messages that they are here and they would like me to bring it to the attention. I have other colleagues that are receiving the same sort of information. The newspapers are receiving the information. News services and journalists are receiving the information. Not only has he provided false information, unlawfully the commissioner provided the information, he's provided false information.
Okay.
It's been borne out daily to not be
Right.
true. But we go back to the fundamental. What did APNU say other than give a list of names to the chairwoman of GCOM? Did they say that we have proof these persons are here? Did they have evidence of any kind? Did they even if they wanted to put in their own affidavits, be self-serving, contrary to law and justice and jurisprudence? Fine. Did they say anything else other than give a list? And if I just come to you, Yog, and hand you a list and say, these are all the persons who have been committing murder for the last 3 years, and you go out, catch them, hang them, is that what you're going to do? No, we
Thank you
can't
for
do that.
correct. Thank you for that, Leonard. Your question.
Yes, I want to ask Dr. Jeffrey because we would have seen statements coming out. Good evening, good doctor. The chairman for ANOC, Timothy Jonas, would have come out and says that GCOM staffers appear to be compromised, GCOM in itself. Is this the reflection of what he's saying there of what ANOC is thinking? Because there seems to be a conflict there.
First of all, let me deal with something because I noticed that Sanjeev went on about GCOM not having any evidence. I am not. I think that's the problem with the law. GCOMs have access to lawyers. My position is clear. GCOM has access to lawyers. GCOM chair is a former judge. If these things are not legal, she cannot come to the conclusions I'm saying. I'm pointing to. I am saying to you, Sanjeev, that if GCOM is unable to come to a winner because of the infractions that have been pointed to it, then the following should happen. We have seen lawyers doing this all the time. This is unlawful, this is lawful, and all the time. Go to court, they lose all the time. Sometimes they win. But I am not here to debate that. I am saying there are allegations before the commission, which the commission needs to look at before it can logically come to any decision about who wins this election. It cannot, and I bet you, Sanjeev, would not agree that if people come to you, you are saying all these are false. They might well be false. What I am saying to you, Dual, but once these matters are put to GCOM, they must be factored into and looked into before they can move on to anything else. You can't just tell me, oh, effectively count the votes in the box and that's it. Never, when I believe that all the votes or most of the votes in the box are corrupted and come from fraud. GCOM would never do that. GCOM is like a board of directors. You wouldn't do that in your company. And your company, GCOM is not more than a board of directors, but a government one.
But
Now,
but
so
but
I am,
Dr. Jeffrey, in any board, if there is such serious infractions being any such accusations, you would have to take it to the court. What is your what is your response? Okay, what is your response to 163? Do you think that that Justice Claudette Singh can just throw away 163 and say, "I will be the court"?
No. I am speaking. That's not true what you said about any board. You running a company. You know that if allegations come to your board, you gotta look into it very seriously.
Yes.
You can then call the police in if you believe there are infractions for somebody to be locked up. But you can, or something like that, you may choose to deal with it in a sort of internal way, or you may call the police.
But I can rebut, but I can
have to look at it before you make a decision.
But I can rebut by saying that any board has its terms and conditions to know where it leaves off to the court or to the police.
Well, but one thing we know for certain, that the board, the GCOM is there. GCOM is there to determine the winner of the elections. And you will not convince me that all they have to do is count the votes in the box, regardless of what sort of accusations are being made. I am not...
Henry, with great respect, GCOM is not there to determine the winner. GCOM is there in the law to declare the winner.
All right.
What the declaration must be is based on the numbers that they have when they have counted the ballots.
The numbers are fictitious. They can't be.
They have no power to do anything.
I deny that.
Because here's what the issue is. The electoral system involves two things. All the administration that goes into election day and the counting, and the second phase is to deal with all the complaints. By the Constitution, Article 162 says GCOM only administers, and the court cannot interfere with the count, and they cannot interfere with the jurisdiction of the court. So they are two different bodies. Now, when the declaration is made of what the numbers are, regardless of what the situation is, if there are reservations about the numbers, if there are reservations about the validity of a vote or all of that, GCOM must declare what the ballots are. GCOM can say that this is what their report is, and one side must go to the court so that the court can see what the report is, and the court has to declare it. The reason why that is so is because GCOM has absolutely no way of conducting a hearing.
You said that before. Listen, you're going over all ground.
Claudette being a judge does not mean that she sits on GCOM to adjudicate, because she doesn't. Because although, because of the current division, there might be three opposition commissioners and 3 government commissioners, which makes her casting vote essentially the vote. Every decision will then be 4-3. It is not her alone. But we have to face the reality that Parliament is absolute. It prescribes the law. What we have to do is follow the law. Now, what we're trying to do,
I deny what you're saying there.
But
show me where in the law it says. Show me where in the law.
So, gentlemen, Dr. Jeffrey, Sanjeev, hold. Time out. 1 second. Let's just set some rules in place. So I'm going to give you, Dr. Jeffrey, 2 minutes, and then Sanjeev 2 minutes. But so go ahead, Dr. Jeffrey. Go ahead.
What I'm saying to you, it is absurd to tell me that a body that must make decisions as to the winner of these elections can be told that there are in those boxes fraudulent votes, and all it can possibly do is to say, let our job is only to count the votes. I deny that. So I don't think we need to go back there. I deny that totally. I think, as I said before, they operate like any board of directors. They come under the Company Act. They know precisely what they invest in, how far they can investigate, and they can do internal arrangements. But if you want to get legal, you go to the police and call in the police. So I deny that, and that can be proven in the court. That's, I believe, is totally absurd. And if I don't think anybody in the world would write that all right. Anyway.
Okay. Sanjeev, your 2 minutes.
Before
if you deny
Sanjeev
that,
gets
I
into
mean,
that, I want
I
to
can't-
ask him, Yog, could
Sanjeev
you,
has his
Sanjeev?
2 minutes, Leonard.
Okay.
Sanjeev has his 2 minutes.
You could deny it, Henry. That's your right. But if you could point me to any law, any statute that says GCOM in fact does that. You see, the premise is everybody, and you are saying it repeatedly, that they have to do. Listen, GCOM does nothing more than declare a result. They don't investigate it. They don't determine the winner, meaning that they will consider which one. And in your example of a company lies the solution. Every company have articles, bylaws, memorandums for the holder. And if it's not in your bylaws, you cannot do it.
I am saying.
So the statute that creates
I deny
and
it,
governs.
Let's not go there. I am.
Yeah, but let me explain. If you could, I am telling you that what you are denying does not exist because there is no power in any statute that allows GCOM to say that they could do anything other than, if you look at Article 177 of the Constitution, it says the leader of the list is deemed to be the president, and GCOM, the chairman of GCOM, shall so declare. That's what you do. But all the administrative powers that you're speaking of to consider everything and to consider whether there is a valid vote or not a valid vote, that is vested in the court. Now, you might not like it. Well, you can deny it all you want. Well, show me where it is.
Organization. I know a
Show
little
me
bit
where
about
it is.
organization.
Show me any. Yeah, what
I want to
statute?
show you that I am saying I know management a little bit. I did that. I did almost my PhD in that. And I am going to tell you this, that no sensible organization, none whatsoever, would say to a board of directors or anyone that you must determine, your job is simply to see in this context, to some votes and say who won, without figuring it out, as you said, if they have all these complaints.
Dr. Jeffrey, in 2011, when Justice Claudette Singh vitiated those elections, I think it was 2011, but 2001. Yeah. Sorry, yes. But it was the same thing. GCOM counted the ballots, declared the results, and an elections petitions thereafter. Now, Sanjeev, what I would like you to comment on in your next 2 minutes after Dr. Jeffrey. Dr. Jeffrey said, and you have negated Chamisa versus Manangwa of Zimbabwe. You have said that you doubt whether that approach would work here. In all of these cases, what I'm drawing to, in all of these cases, there was a declaration, and thereafter, the courts would have done what they have to do.
That is not true, what you just said, you.
But I'm reading from your article here in Starbuck News.
That in the case of Ms. Jagan in 2001.
Okay, go ahead.
In the case of Ms. Jagan in 2001, the petitioners went to the court, the court not knowing that Ms. Jagan was secretly sworn, gave her an injunction.
No. I'm talking about the ID card. I'm talking about the ID card.
In the ID card kit, they're not knowing that Ms. Jagan was secretly sworn in. The court seized the issue and gave an injunction, not knowing she was sworn in secretly. And Ms. Jagan, as you know, the whole thing about throwing it over her shoulder. So effectively, the court seized that issue before Ms. Jagan was, in their view, before Ms. Jagan was sworn in.
Dr. Jeffrey, when Justice Claude...
Please, allow me.
Yes.
Henry, you keep making it up as you go along. I was one of the lawyers in that matter. There was no injunction granted. Injunctions do not exist in the public law. It didn't until 2 years ago. That's when injunctions for the very first time came. Let me finish.
Yeah.
You had to have what is called an order nisi.
Okay.
An order nisi was granted in those proceedings. And what it simply means in the prerogative writ system, which existed before 2016 in Guyana, you had to get leave of the court to bring proceedings. Order nicis are not injunctions. They don't do anything except what it says is you now have the right to bring this public official before the court. It was Aubrey Norton who filed it, or Hamilton, one of the two. I think it was Aubrey Norton. They came. When they came, the Chief Justice said, we issued the order nisi. We understand that there was a swearing in. That's the case I was referring to, that Dudnath Singh argued successfully that it was a deeming provision, that he did not need to make the declaration and she did not need to be sworn. It was a deeming provision under Article 177. And if you read the decision of Chief Justice Bernard, she said the court had no jurisdiction.
But what I'm saying...
No. You keep changing the facts to suit your argument and saying that it's so. I am telling you that the court said they had no jurisdiction until the declaration would have been made. And the court said in that particular proceeding that we could not entertain it by way of judicial review, prerogative writ, but you needed to file an election petition. Subsequently, an election petition was filed. The court heard it. They said in the end that because voter ID cards were used, and that was an unlawful fetter on the identity provisions of the Constitution, the elections were vitiated. So let's get it clear.
Yes.
The court said they could not interfere until a declaration was made. The court said that what was required to be declared was the vote count at that time. The court said that what had happened is the person who got...
The ones before, what you said?
They had to declare the results of the count of what they had.
The court said the count of what they had.
Yes, they had to declare the tabulated results of what they had. The court said that what was required was, what had to happen was an elections petition. The court said that there was a deeming provision in the Constitution that deemed that person to be the president. In addition to what was argued about the deeming provision, Senior Counsel Dudnath Singh and Bernard DeSantis, Senior Counsel, God rest their souls, they both argued that an unassailable lead had been achieved and that there was no way, being 54,000 votes ahead or something in that vicinity, there were a few boxes from the interior locations that needed to be verified, and there was no, the lead was unassailable. That the only thing that would be required, that would go towards, is the allocation of seats. But even in that time, let us not conflate the issue or confuse it. When they said that if you had a dispute about anything that went on, you had to file that's what Chief Justice Bernard said, and that decision was not appealed. Chief Justice Bernard's decision is still the decision that stands. She also ruled that in Hamilton, and in fact, Hamilton is the case which was relied upon by Madam Chief Justice Roxanne George, when she said the court has no discretion except if GCOM is breaking the law. And
Mm-hmm.
what was happening here is GCOM was breaking the law. Mingo was not showing the statement of polls in accordance with Section 84.
So,
Sanjeev,
Leonard, you want
all
to
I
jump
am
in
saying,
here?
Yes, absolutely. So I have some observations to make. I'm the layman here, and I think I represent the greater part of Guyana. To my knowledge, and the fundamental issue that is on the table here is whether GCOM could go ahead and look into the observation. I think that's what I understand Mr. Jeffrey is trying to say at this point in time. And on the other hand, Sanjeev is saying that no, that GCOM at this point in time could only make the declarations. I want to ask you, because what is governing, from my understanding, this entire recount process is an order. What does the order say, according to you, Sanjeev, and according to Mr. Henry Jeffrey here? I ask you, Dr. Jeffrey, what do you understand that the order is saying with regards to the powers of GCOM, with regards to the recount, and what they could and could not do?
my understanding of what the order says about the recount is that the recount will take place, and that from that recount, GCOM will declare the winner of the elections. Now, it's put it simply, that is what it says. The recount has taken place, and that recount has not only showed, and it has shown, who received the most votes at the election, but that recount has turned up a whole lot of anomalies and accusation of illegalities. It is the duty of anybody that will determine the outcome of the elections. It is their duty to look into those allegations before. It would be madness to sit here and tell me they can't do that. Their job is just to count and say. If that is so, well, at sometimes the law is an ass. But the point is, there must be more than an ass at this point.
Sanjeev?
I, I, this is what we have to remember. We could do, I answer your question in two parts. One, with the corollary that we must make. Notwithstanding anything that GCOM puts in that order, GCOM cannot give to itself that which the legislation does not give, because that is, of course, circular. You see, taking the order as the binding effect is really a bit of a misnomer. It's a non sequitur. They can't. If they've put something and arrogated to themselves any authority which the statute does not give to them, they can't give it to themselves, one. Two, gazetting the order doesn't make it subsidiary legislation, as the Attorney General, Mr. Williams, is trying to say, because that would be nonsensical. All the transport in the name of of Henry and Yog would then be subsidiary legislation. And if you wanted, God forbid, to sell it or change the name, you had to go to Parliament and have it changed. All the mortgages that are passed would have the similar thing, and all the various trademarks that Kaichur News and Mr. Gildarie you would own, all the various intellectual property rights that you have that are gazetted, you would have to go to Parliament to amend them or to change them. That is preposterous. So putting it in the Gazette doesn't make it subsidiary legislation. That's the first thing. The second thing is what the order says is based on the recount, GCOM would make a declaration. It also says that what will happen is that a report will be presented to GCOM of the votes, and the report would also be presented a summary of the observations, that what are the observation reports. But there is a misnomer that is being created, that by presenting that information to GCOM, that GCOM will then be entitled to do anything other than what their statutory power is. So it is very clear. Some of the wording of that order, the second one especially, the second order to extend time, some of the wording is a bit unfortunate, but it conveys if you take it literally, things which GCOM cannot do. So that is indeed unfortunate. But if you look at the minutes of the meeting, the GCOM meeting, and what was really agreed, it was not, the GCOM was not attempting by the language used in the order to give itself statute powers that the statute did not give to it. But we have to be aware of one thing only, Leonard. We, because of the nature of what is going on here, and because of the simple, I would say the degree, the violent degree to the disagreements and the disputes that are going on, the only thing to do is to stick close to the letter of the law. Because if we try to make it up as we go along, we are going to have shouting matches where people will say what they deem to be fair and others will say what they also deem to be fair, obviously to suit their own ends. So the only thing to do is stick to the letter of the law, the exact letter of the law.
So Dr. Jeffrey, I wanna come to you on two things. First thing, what is Dr. Jeffrey's personal and professional opinion of what Mr. Mingo did on both March 3rd and 13th?
I have said, and I've written it, that Mr. Mingo I don't know about the details of how he did what he did. But at the end of the day, Mr. Mingo presented some figures that was out of whack, that the recounter shown were false. That's what I think. And whatsoever must follow Mr. Mingo in terms of law will follow it.
So here is why I ask you that. So it is the procedures within GCOM that allowed Mingo's act to be discovered and stopped, because everything is so transparent, because he had to use the SOPs and so forth. So here is my second question to you, that is a follow-up to that. During these recounts, APNO AFC has been making allegations. In other words, we all know what they did, but let me just humor the viewers and listeners. So APNO says, I have 100 names to call out. They didn't give a reason for calling out the 100 names. They call out 100 names. And then GCOM would say they're ticked or unticked. And those, if out of 100 names, GCOM say 6 are ticked, APNO say, well, I have a problem with those 6. Now, hold on. However, this recount was supposed to be observed by independent observers, but not one observer was allowed to observe that part, whether the tick was there or not. How do the public know that 6 that were ticked were not mingled, for the lack of a better word?
Let me ask you, I don't know why we are going here. Effectively, I agree with Sanjeev that at the end of the day, we must stick close to the law. Sanjeev is only a player in the law. Who would determine what the law is? Are the courts in the final analysis. We can bring a lawyer that on the opposite side that would sit here and put up a case more. This is not a court matter.
Right.
I am saying to you, this discourse is not about the court. Sanjeev has put up a case as to why the GCOM can't do nothing. I am saying to you that it is preposterous that you can ask me to make decisions in the face of illegalities and tell me that I can't take them into consideration.
But Dr. Jeffrey, my question was premised on how does the public trust GCOM to even go down that road? Because Lowenfield was there when Mingo did that and he didn't stop it.
But this is not an issue about public trust in anybody. You have your people at GCOM. They will see all the reports.
Okay.
The opposite, and they will have to discourse about these reports. And the chairman, at the end of the day, if they can't agree among themselves, may have to cast a casting vote. This is not about trust anybody. And that's why some people normally say the GCOM is, you need to have independent people. But what you have now has shown some of the reasons why it is like that. PVP has people, PNC has some people there. They will consider it, and the chairman will make the final decision. This is not about trusting anybody.
But
I am saying
then you are right. It's either they follow the law or they don't.
yes, but Rajiv is only one. He's only presenting the law as he sees it. That the law will have to be determined at the end of the day. If GCOM does what I say and not what Rajiv say, he will
Sanjeev.
go to court. He will go to court, and then the court will so determine. So I don't know. We have finished with this a long time. So far as I'm concerned, I am saying to you that it is impossible. It is preposterous to think you can put a body like GCOM into play and say all you got to do is count the votes and give it to somebody.
Before I go to Sanjeev, during your years in both sides of the main political divide in Guyana, has GCOM ever investigated itself for all the years of allegations of electoral malpractices?
GCOM is no. We have never had this situation before. But that don't mean this is not even a legal issue. It's just a logical issue. It's an issue of logic and administration. You cannot ask me to make a decision. You cannot ask me to make a fundamental decision as to who win an election simply by counting the votes when in front of me there are numerous allegations. It is for me to look at those allegations, to see which one of them makes sense and to deal with them and to say they are nonsense and throw them aside. It is not the PNC alone. There's a PPP there too, and there is the chairman to do the casting vote. That is what any serious board of directors would have done, and that is what GCOM has to do it done. And I deny that the law can possibly require anything else.
Okay, Sanjeev.
You see, we keep Henry keeps repeating. He keeps repeating that's what that GCOM must be able to do this, but public bodies, statutory public bodies, must only operate within the confines of the powers by statute. Now, what would be the difficulty that whatever is the discrepancies complained about, whatever are the complaints about irregularities, what would be the difficulty in having the court adjudicate on it? I'll tell you why it makes such a big issue. It makes such a big issue because of this. When the declaration is made by GCOM as to who the winner is based on the numbers, it will be Irfan Ali. He will then be the person who will be sworn in as president. Mr. Granger will have to leave office. And then if he has if he wishes to file an election petition, he will thereafter file an election petition. So the reason why everyone wants to transform GCOM, or those who want to transform GCOM into a court, it is to make sure that Mr. Granger does not have to leave the presidency. Now, there are two things that are incorrect, or there are two fallacies that exist with that. One is GCOM can only declare whatever the counted votes say. Now, and any complaint about that, the court will have a conduct by way of election petition to investigate all that relates to it. The issue of whether there is a change or whether there is someone else sworn in as the president, the court has the power to reverse that if they're to find any value in what the complaint is. The court has the power to continue it if it finds no value in what the power is. But we can't have it both ways. We can't have the number of votes that are counted reflect one person as the winner, while we will say, without it being verified or without it being investigated, that we will not swear that person in as leader. Because Article 177 makes it clear that he is deemed to be the president. So our Constitution moves things very far down the road from what we want. But so what has to happen is the declaration should happen, the swearing in of Irfan Ali should take place, and if they have proof, if APNU has proof, APNU have been saying, for example, and they have said it twice, Mr. Harman has said it, and there was someone else who had said that their statement to polls are being strategically kept to themselves because of the court case that they might have to be involved in. And they also said that whatever Mingo declared was the correct figures. Now, I guarantee you that those SOPs will never be produced. No, that will never see the light of day. And there's a reason for that. No one in the history of the planet has gone to court to be declared the loser of an election. In fact, an election petition does not permit you to ask the court for that. You cannot ask to be declared a loser. And I am sure the SOPs in their possession reflects that they did not win the election, but they still did not concede. Now, when we get to the point that where we are now, with the complaints being made in the manner that they're made, when the complaints are being made in the manner that they are being made, and you are then saying, let us twist the law and give another public body ill-equipped to deal with the hearing the power to decide it because we think that it's logical and fair, well, I'm sorry. We can't care what you think is logical and fair. We have to care about what the law says. And if you think it's foolish or the law is an ass, then so be it. Go to Parliament and change it.
You are not the arbiter of what the law is. You are just simply giving an opinion. And I said, I do not believe your opinion. And I agree with you. You have to stay with it.
That's an easy out to an argument when there's no substance to it.
I do not agree with your opinion. I agree that you must stay with it. And I'm saying,
if you show me any law that contradicts what I say, be so.
Sufficient lawyers and all of that to deal with this issue. So if it is illegal, they wouldn't do it. And if they do it, you can go to the court and change the decisions they have made. So I have finished with that. I am saying from my understanding of management, you are talking from a legal background. And if you wish to legal...
But it is a matter of law. It is not an issue of management.
A legal argument.
It is not an issue of management.
Go through this detail. I am saying
it is not an issue of management.
Of course it's an issue of management. You cannot ask any serious manager to say who wins something when in front of him there are all set of...
Yeah, but the law says what the manager could do.
All you got to do is count and don't worry with it. So
exactly what the law says you must do.
But I'm saying I deny that. So
well, fine. Take 5 minutes. Get 5 minutes and find any law that you think.
So, Dr. Jeffrey. Dr. Jeffrey.
About 30 minutes, more than 30 minutes, and all we're going is
okay. Let's come back. Let's go to another question I have for you, Dr. Jeffrey. This just came into me from one of the viewers. It would appear that on some program or platform a couple of weeks back, you said that the PPP has rigged all these elections from 1992 onwards. Is that true or false?
I said that these two parties have been in the rigging game for 2-3 elections. That's what I said. Not the PPP or PNC. I said that they have used the bloated list that they have with them to keep themselves in office or try to gain office. That's what I said.
But the reason I ask you that, sir, with respect, I say this, but you have been a member of both parties. You have sat on both sides of the fence when this alleged rigging took place. And so therefore you are also guilty of it then.
Yes, but all right. Let us, for instance, understand something. Yes, I am guilty too. So what? That means it wasn't done. But I don't want to go there. I can make to say you were part of it doesn't make it any difference in terms of its wrongness or rightness. This is all personalizing.
No, but here's why I ask. Why I ask. The issue here is that persons are obviously benefiting from having a government in office of their choice.
No, what I am saying to you, I have never said I have said that these matters must be properly investigated and a decision made. I never said that that the accusations made by the APNU or whosoever is the correct accusation. I am saying they must be properly investigated. And if so, by GCOM, that's where we're having this discourse. You want to shift it away from GCOM. You're saying that the concern, Rajiv is saying the concern
Sanjeev
is saying that the concern is about Granger having to give up the power and all sorts of things.
That's the only concern.
That is not my concern. That is not my concern. But I mean, I have a kind of a concern like that once you not.
But Dr. Jeffrey, in the matter as serious as electing a president and a set of persons to govern this country, it cannot be left. It should not be left to a group of persons to decide on their own moral or immoral code. This is why you have the courts.
It is not left. It is not left. These people will go and they must investigate to come to a conclusion. But you can go to court tomorrow I believe you can go to court now and stop them from doing it if they start doing it. But my thing is, you can go to court the next day after their decision, and the court will decide on whether or not their procedures were correct. You can do that. Just like how you are telling the PNC they can go by election petition. You can go to court, maybe not in by election, and says that these procedures was wrong. And if the procedures was wrong, the court will determine whether or not to overthrow.
You do realize how preposterous the proposition is, Henry. You keep saying, you don't accept it, but you have no law, so that your argument remains what it is. You then go in a circular thing saying, listen, if you don't care about the law and the Constitution, fine, do what you want. I mean, you could do what you want if you have no reason.
I am saying, if I am wrong,
because you are saying you are preposterous because you have no reason for being right, but you deny what is in your face, and what on the face of it establishes what you are wrong. You decided, no, let me finish. It is preposterous because you have decided that whatever knowledge or education you have in relation to management means that applies to GCOM, notwithstanding what the hell the law or the Constitution says. You'd also decided that the whole discussion must be that they can't ignore what it is because you feel that would be inherently wrong. Now, if you have all these feelings and if you have all these views,
that is not my position.
The only
my
other
position
human
is that
being...
you are misinterpreting the law. That is my position. All I am saying.
Tell me how I'm interpreting
you are. I am not a lawyer.
Tell me how I'm interpreting.
I am saying to you,
then how
fundamental principle. Listen,
no, I'm tired of playing catcher with you.
And you,
every time you get tagged, you run away and you change the goalpost.
I am saying you.
So don't take my opinion for the love. But then don't take my opinion to either.
I am saying that there is no way, it's impossible for you to tell any group of managers to behave the way you are saying our law.
As a little boy growing up, I always wanted to
managers, Henry. I am telling you what GCOM.
And I'm saying to you that you are not the arbiter of what the law is. You are just giving an opinion. And I am saying, if I am wrong, let me get this about this.
If you are wrong, then what?
I am saying,
if you are wrong,
I am saying, if I am wrong, or if GCOM acts in the way I suggest and are wrong, they can go to the courts. Just like you're asking, saying that you can go to the courts with election petition and the court would overthrow their decision.
Okay.
No, so what you're doing is you're saying that your entire argument is premised on the fact that you don't want to go to the court, but you want the other side to go to the court. I mean, Henry, you can't have it both ways.
I don't want anybody to go to the court. I want GCOM to be allowed. I want GCOM to be allowed to do a proper managerial job of checking out the facts and making
I would like
That
I
is what
have much simpler wishes. I wish people would stop saying things which have no foundation in law and preach it like it was the
you are
gospel
not the
according to
decider on
Matthew,
what is law.
because it's not.
Law will be
And
decided
you
in the
are,
court. You are
yeah, but I'm only telling you what my wish is. My wish is
all right. Yes,
those
yes, yes.
those who have a voice and those who have some public
But
standing should stop preaching nonsense as law as if
yeah.
it were the gospel according to Matthew.
No, no, no,
If
no.
you do not know Henry, then we are all better off if you don't say it.
But
Don't
I am putting it to
incite a
you.
position.
I
Do
am.
not incite a position which you, if you don't want to accept my view of the law, fine. Go find your own lawyer and find one that will tell you that the nonsense you're saying that GCOM has the authority to do is written in some book and Parliament has agreed that it is so.
I
You
am
were in
not.
Parliament. You
I
might
am
have been
saying
able
to
to
you,
change it, but you didn't.
Rajiv. I am saying to you, what you are saying to me cannot be, because it conflicts with natural justice. It cannot be that you are telling me to make a decision as to who win an election and don't take into consideration all the evidence before me.
No, no, no. But hold.
I
Evidence
am
or
saying the
allegation?
law
Evidence
says,
or allegation?
Allegation, but they got
I
to
am
prove it.
Okay,
saying
thank
to
you.
you,
They are
let's make
allegations.
it very clear. I
They
am
are
saying to you
allegations, but
that the
they will
law
produce
says that
evidence
if
at some
you
point.
find that there are
But,
discrepancies, you have to allow a court to rule on the
bull,
discrepancies.
bull,
Well,
nonsense. I
this is
will
it.
first make my decision, and then the court will deal with
So,
it after, if I'm wrong.
Dr.
So
Jeffrey,
make it up as you go along. Let's burn
Dr.
Yo,
the
could I
Jeffrey.
lawyers
ask my
outside
question now? As a
and
little
let's
boy
just do
growing up,
this.
I
Yes,
always wanted to see an accountant and a lawyer
let's yes.
and a
Leonard, over to
manager.
you.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
As a little
yeah. Okay.
boy growing up, I always wanted to see a lawyer, an accountant, and a manager go at it without the gloves. And it's been a good thing. But let me ask this. He who asserts must provide the evidence. And I want to ask Dr. Jeffrey whether he agreed with Madam Chair with putting the statement out when she was responding or making a statement to Commissioner Says Gunraj. Has the evidence been provided?
APN, as I understanding in these kinds of law, is that they must provide some kind of prima facie case, a reasonable thing that these things are true. And my understanding, according to the law, wait. These people have provided you with evidence that 217 people have voted. They have voted. Both migrants have voted. People that were not in the country. They have provided you with that. You said that 24 of those persons, 24 of them, have come to you and people are calling you and all of that. Well, yes, but if you still have over 150 people that were not supposed to be able to vote, coming from all across the country, you have a problem. Now, government looking at that may feel, oh, that's not
What problem you have?
you have a problem of
What's the problem?
migrants, people who are not supposed. You said impossible to vote. You GCOM and
So what's the
impossible to
problem?
vote.
Tell me what the
The
problem
problem
is. A
is,
hundred of people voted that shouldn't have voted.
no, I'm saying, no, they're not claiming it's only 100, Sanjeev. You know that they're claiming
Well,
about
how much they
3,000.
claim?
But they
No,
are
they actually wrote two letters.
about
One
200.
had 200 names,
Yes,
and one had 264.
Okay.
So it totals 464.
Remember that the burden of proof moves to GCOM after they have made a prima facie.
Where do you get this from?
Oh, well,
GCOM has no dog in the fight. How do they have a burden?
no, I am saying the burden of proof. If I go to GCOM, if they go to GCOM, and they said
You're saying the burden of proof
GCOM,
shifts to GCOM?
huh?
The burden of proof shifts to GCOM?
No, I'm saying if they go to GCOM and
Yes.
says that, listen, these people have voted, you have now about 75% of them are shown that yes, they have voted and they are not in the country.
All right, stop for
Yeah,
1 second.
we have a list of 3,000 people.
No, stop for 1 second. Stop for 1 second.
Yeah.
We're talking of the list that APNU has given to GCOM.
Right.
Right. First thing,
Right.
the list that they have given, as far as I'm aware, and has been published, and if you go down to the Artichung, I think everybody's aware. The first list had 200 names, of which the Commissioner of Police replied with 172 being correct. And the second list had 264 names. Kaichur News published the two lists. So if we take it all, let's not reduce it. We take it, it's 464 names. At the end of all the thousands of complaints, they submitted 464 names. Now let us take, for argument's sake, that they are all nefarious, notorious migrant voters who secretly walk 2,000 miles from the United States across the Atlantic on water, and they come back into Guyana illegally and they vote. Let us take that that is the given fact. So we have approximately 464 Jesus, because they all walked across. Having done that, how does that change the election?
No.
Let us assume you take 464 votes off. It doesn't change. We're still over 50. No. But go one step further still.
Yes.
How do you know who they came back here and sneaked into the country to vote? You think APNU can find Jesus to walk to?
Oh, no, I have no problem about that. What I am saying
then what do you do?
I am saying to you that you have a problem with the PNC. They have to provide you with sufficient names to demonstrate. They have got to provide you with all the names they have to demonstrate.
Who they keeping it for?
They have to provide you with sufficient name to show that what they are saying makes sense. It is
what they keeping the other names for, out of curiosity.
Wait. Let's say, for instance, they don't have resources to do it. You have the resource. GCOM has the resource. GCOM can call the police now and say they have 3,000 other names. Can you check this out?
But they can't do that because GCOM can't investigate it because you're asking GCOM to be the adjudicator. No man can be a judge in his own cause. You're talking about human and natural rights, and Cicero, one of the tenets was no man can be a judge in his own cause. So if GCOM is investigate, GCOM can't make the decision. So who's going to make it for them?
Make the primary decision in terms
of doing what?
Of who wins what. And that is what they have to do.
Man, Henry, slow down. Work with me here. We're at the investigation stage. You're saying they give the names to GCOM. They keep some secret for God knows what reason.
They keep any secret. I never said that.
Okay. But they don't have the ability to investigate, so they should. But let me tell you this. They were to give all to GCOM. It is for GCOM to now investigate.
It's for GCOM to get those names investigated.
By who?
By the police.
GCOM has no power to ask the police.
GCOM is an arm of the state. It can call on any arm of the state to do the kind of investigation it wants.
All right, fair enough. GCOM tells the police go investigate. The police comes back with an investigation. What does GCOM do with the information?
It uses that information to help determine with all the other things, what result it will present to the Guyanese people.
Fair enough. Let us take it. Let us go one step further, Henry. Let us say that they have found that there are all these nefarious people who have done this dastardly act. What does GCOM declare?
GCOM could declare that this election, the rules have been broken in these elections in such a manner and at such an extent that the elections are void.
GCOM has no statutory power to declare a void because we have a statute, a little statute that we wrote about 100 years ago that says that only a court can declare an election void.
Well, tell me,
so
you see where we're going here?
So no, stop. So GCOM declares it void. What happens next?
The next move is for GCOM to determine what should be done in the future.
Okay, so what will GCOM do?
GCOM will
this election is void. What does
GCOM would
GCOM
say,
say?
for instance, I think the easiest thing for them to would say, that's not what I would like them to say, but GCOM could say that the incumbent regime stays in office for 18 months, just like other places, about 18 months to get a rectified list and then to call new elections based on that, on those particular.
Henry, if you look at the Kaichur page now, the amount of costs you get, you have a lot to answer for.
No, I
But let
don't
me
care
tell
about
no,
forcing.
I know you don't care, but let me
No.
tell you this. Henry, you have lost your mind. Listen to me.
Yeah.
GCOM,
Oh,
listen
yeah,
to me. Listen, you've given your thing. Let me tell you. How does GCOM decide who stays in power? How does GCOM decide when the next election is? The law is you must. Let me just go through.
Go on.
So the law says you got to call an election by proclamation. The president must do that and dissolve parliament. If parliament is dissolved for more than 90 days, it's too late to do the proclamation. The parliament has been dissolved for a hell of a lot longer. We can't bring back the parliament because who are we going to put in it? But GCOM steps in and GCOM says, well, here what? To hell with what the law says. To hell with what the Constitution says. Henry Jeffrey thinks this is a bloody good idea and we should do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to say that there is no winner. Firstly, GCOM has no power to say there is no winner. Understand that that is a specific wording of the law. They must declare the winner who is deemed to have the most votes. So if they wanted to follow your very unlawful process, Henry, they would still have to come to a determination of how many votes still exist. Because if you go to with your no, Henry, you will not go with your version of what you said and take away my vote.
No.
You might be able to take away the other. Let me finish.
What happens in the Janet Jackson case? I wanted to say something about it, but what happened?
No, stop for a minute. No. You keep jumping around every time I tell you. So this is what you will not do. You might take the other 423,908 because the 909th one, I believe, is me. And you ain't taking my vote based on something that GCOM decide. You have no power in law. That's a sacrosanct view.
Again, I'm saying.
Well, let me finish, Naman. Yes. I listened to your diatribe long enough.
Yes.
So I'm pointing out what the flaws are. You cannot simply take away people's vote and annul an election. You have to come to a number. You have no power to investigate how to get to that number. So God help you.
I'm denying that. We have denied that before.
So gentlemen, didn't I follow you across the Atlantic with the people walking with the nonsense that you were doing? Listen to what I have.
So gentlemen, hold on. Hold on.
You're going around the same stuff time and time again.
I followed your follow.
Hold.
So let me tell you that it can't be done.
Dr. Jeffrey, gentlemen, we are out of program time. We got a minute more to go. Dr. Jeffrey, 30 seconds to you, sir. Go.
Yes. I will hope that the Guyana Elections Commission take what I believe to be the logical and sensible course.
You should only believe in God, Henry, nothing else.
The logical and sensible course, and look at all of the evidence before them and come to a decision as to these elections. If they feel that they cannot declare a winner, they must determine for us a way forward. I believe too that the course that they should determine forward should be as inclusive as possible.
Thank you.
Listen, I only got one thing to say. All these transparent, gerrymandering, fanciful, utter nonsensical explanations that originate, I regret that it comes from you, Henry, and other intellectuals are designed for one thing politically, to make sure that they, yes, I'm going there.
Political too.
And I am telling you that all the inventions that we have now are for one purpose, to make sure that the will of the Guyanese people is thwarted. And that what in fact happens is we have some do-over. This is not 2-year-olds playing with marbles. This is
Thank
not
you.
pick up your bat and ball and go home. Follow the law. Swear in
You are
Irfan
not
Ali
the
because he's won
determining
the election.
factor.
No,
Thank
but
you.
you are not the
Sanjeev,
determining factor
thank
on
you.
management either.
Right.
What
But
you
Dr.
said is
exactly.
Jeffrey,
utter
So we
trash.
thank
accept.
you. Sanjeev, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you.
we are out of time. It's been great to chat with you. I look forward to another return to round 2 of this discussion. Viewers and listeners
Thank you,
all
Yo.
across
Thank you,
Guyana,
Leonard. Take good care.
thank you and good night from room 592. Bye-bye now.
Good night. Good night, and may your God be with you.
See you later.